Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lucy and I'm a volunteer for the Parent Carer Forum. I have two children with special educational needs and disabilities. One child attends a mainstream primary school and the other child attends a specialist high school. So I'm a parent carer first, and like everybody else at the Parent Carer Forum, we all have children with special educational needs and disabilities, and everything we do here is voluntary. So our role as the Parent Carer Forum is to provide information events like this so that parents and carers feel empowered and are aware of what services are available to them. And we also work alongside, independently, but alongside the council to help improve services in education, health and social care. So part of our job is to share the real experiences of families of what life is actually like of having a SEND child within Cheshire West and Chester. Next slide, please, Jane. So just before I hand over to IASS, which is why you're all here, I just wanted to do a quick PCF update, and then we'll hand over to IASS and you'll find out about their service and how they can help, and have a bit more in-depth information on the SEND Code of Practice. Next slide, please, Jane. So one of the main ways that we capture parents' voices is through our biannual parent carer survey, and that survey is now live and the closing date is the 6th of February, and the purpose of the survey is to give us clear black and white evidence that we can take back to the local authority and say this is what life is like for parents and carers with children with SEND. This is what they're experiencing on the ground. It allows us to highlight patterns such as where services are working well in one area but not the other area, and where families are consistently struggling to access services such as neurodivergent children accessing mental health services. So the survey covers a range of everything to do with SEND, everything to do with education, school, SEND support, EHCPs, health and social care. So please do take your time to fill out that survey, but just as importantly, please do share with other families that you know. The more voices we have, the stronger our evidence is, and the better place we are to improve services for families. And just one more update before I hand you over to IASS is we've got our next in-person forum, Preparation for Adulthood, at the Civic Hall in Ellesmere Port. So please do put the date in your diaries for that. We encourage anyone with children with SEND from year 7 onwards to attend that event. I will put the links to these events within the chat to the event and to the survey in the chat for you, so it's easier for you to access. So I'm going to hand over to Anne-Marie now.
Hi everyone. So my name's Anne-Marie Cotton and I work for Cheshire West SENDIAS service, which stands for SEN and Disabilities Information, Advice and Support Service. So I'm going to go through a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. So I think Jane is going to be my glamorous assistant and move the slides forward as we get to them. Thanks very much, Jane. So this is us, Information, Advice and Support Service. So I'm going to talk a bit about what SENDIAS does in general, because it's a national, sort of a national service. And then I'm going to talk about some ways in which we support parents locally and some of the issues that we are supporting parents with locally. And then I'm going to talk a bit about SEN support in schools, a little bit about the EHC process, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions at the end. Thanks, Jane. So I just wanted to introduce us as a team of people. So your local SEND IASS service is made up of Joanna, our team manager, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who do the same job as me, which is direct support to parents, and then 2 admin staff. So Layla and Gemma are, to give them their official council title, are business support assistants, but they're the ones who will answer your calls initially or respond to your first email. And then we work at the moment divided up by area, so you can see each of our names and then an area in brackets, and most of the time we pick up calls and respond to parents who live in the area, in those particular areas. Thanks very much, Jane. Next slide. So I did want to start off by saying something about the law. Our service, SEND IASS service provision, is based in the law, in particular the Children and Families Act from 2014, and a particular section of that act, which is section 19. And section 19 gives some general principles that the local authorities must have regard to when they're supporting disabled children and young people and those with SEN. What they do have to pay particular attention to is the views, wishes and feelings of the child and young person and of their parents, and the importance of them participating in decision making. And they have to provide them information and support to enable them to do so. So we are the service that does that, that allows a local authority to fulfill that obligation. The information, advice and support service can either be a local authority team, i.e. in-house, or it can be outsourced, contracted out to a charity, so or another provider. So in Cheshire West, the council have decided to keep us as an in-house service, but locally, for example, on the Wirral, it's outsourced into a charity called Wired, independent of the local authority. But what the law has also done is put some boundaries around a SEND IASS team, which is in-house. So we have to have a manager who only manages our team. So Joanna doesn't manage any other team in the local authority. Our team has to operate at what's called arm's length from the rest of the local authority. So we have no shared database and there's no sharing of information unless you, the parent carer, has specifically asked us to, or unless we believe there's a child at risk. But we can't look at the social care database or the SEN team database. They can't look at our database. Ours stands alone outside of the local authority. The other important thing to say about our service is it's free, confidential and impartial. How we operate is impartially. We're not on anybody's side. We're there to make sure you as parents have all the access to all the information and the support you need in order to join in to participate with decision making. Thanks, Jane. So in terms of what we actually do, we provide, as it says on our title, information, advice and support to you if you have a child with any kind of special educational need or disability. They don't need to have a diagnosis, and it might be that you're the only person that thinks they have a special educational need. What our aim is to help you work your way through the system and make informed decisions. And what we are aiming to do as well is to empower you to make those decisions. So we are not a set of professionals who will tell you what to do and make decisions on your behalf. What our aim is to give you the information that you need in order to engage with the system and to make decisions yourself. Our goal is to provide information, advice and support, is to promote your participation and inclusion, and it's to enable you to make your decisions. Thanks, Jane. So in terms of what we actually help with, support in resolving disagreements, support where your child is, supporting you where your child is receiving SEN support in school, understanding funding, understanding what provision is out there, pretty much everything to do with the education, health and care plan process. Health and care needs assessments, we have more of a signposting role there. Understanding what personal budgets are. We do a lot of signposting between us as a team. We have a lot of information that we can share with parents. Layla and Gemma, our support staff, will find out what your query is about. They will maybe send you some initial information to just get you started. But the reason they want to find out info from you is so that they can get you to the right person within our team. So just as a snapshot, I asked in our team, what's everybody supporting with? At the moment, we're supporting families with permanent exclusions, suspensions, school place appeals, appeals for everything to do with the EHC system, EHC process, annual reviews, mediation, school meetings where attendance is an issue, school meetings just to understand what support is in place, disagreements over provision in school, transition from school to college, transport queries. Well, that's not an exhaustive list, but pretty much anything you can think of, really. And if it's not us, we will know who to direct you to. Thanks, Jane. In terms of what we actually do, so a lot of our work is done over the phone. So we spend a lot of our time on telephone calls with parents and carers, finding out what support they need and talking them through what options are. So that's one-to-one sessions, either via telephone or Teams or Zoom. We can attend face-to-face meetings if required, and if they meet our criteria, I'll come on to that. But a lot of meetings now are done over Teams anyway, and we've found that a lot of support we're giving at the moment is maybe a parent is in school face-to-face with a meeting, and we've joined in on a Teams call just to participate and support the parent. A lot of our support is around helping parents prepare for meetings. We also can support and give guidance on filling in forms and writing letters. In most cases, we don't do that for people, but we can certainly give advice to how to do it. And again, a lot of signposting. So thanks, Jane. The next couple of slides, I'm not going to read out. I've just put in here for reference. We don't do face-to-face support as a matter of routine, mainly because of the model we work on, which is empowering parents, but also it's just a logistical thing, and our time pressure at the moment because of how busy our service is that we can support more people for more time if we're not driving to individual locations. So, but we consider requests for face-to-face support on an individual basis. So it's, although we've got criteria, the decision is made on an individual basis. The next slide, Jane. We've also put up here, and I'm not going to read this out, they're just examples for reference of some things that we don't do, that aren't within our field of expertise. So it's just setting it out there. You know, we'd love to help with everything, but we need to limit ourselves to what our area of expertise is. Next slide, Jane. So I've put this one up here. We're waiting and waiting, ever hopeful that we will have our own standalone website, but it's in development, we keep being told. The wheels of the local authority grind quite slowly, it seems. But we do have our own page on the Live Well website. And on that page, we've got lots of leaflets as well as our contact details. Jane, are you able to click on that link? And if so, does anything happen? Can you do a control and click or not?
Just bear with me, I've just got it. I can only share one screen at a time and it's not picking that screen up. Just
unless I Oh, yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. If everyone can see that. So if you scroll, so this is our page on the Live Well site. If you're able to scroll down that and keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So there in blue, those are links to a lot of our fact sheets. So there's a lot of information on there about things that parents might call us up about, for example, annual reviews, EHC plans, how SEN is supported in schools, how SEN is funded in schools. So if you contact us for the first time, Gemma or Layla might direct you or send you some of our leaflets just to be getting along with. That isn't to say go away and read a leaflet instead of talking to us. It's just for some parents, it's something to have a look at. It might answer some of your questions. And then when you do get a phone call, it can be a bit more directed. Equally, you can just dip in and out of those as you move through the SEN process and think, oh, I'll just double check the IAS website, see if they've got a leaflet on that. Thanks very much, Jane. There are a few more links through the presentation, so might ask you to do that again.
I'll just go back to your presentation now.
Thank you. So the next slide is just a slide with our contact details and when we're open. Your initial contact will be by phone or email, and you will get a call back or an email answer asking for some more details and giving you some initial information. That callback or contact is usually the same day, if not the next day. Then if we are the right service for you, your information is added to our secure database. As I said, we're the only team that can access that database. And then you're added to our individual lists for contact depending on where you live. Our current contact time is 7 days, but it's often quicker. We'll try to be as flexible as we can with days and times we contact you and your preference for email or phone call. So we have got some of the team members work extended hours. So at least one of my colleagues is in work from 7 in the morning if people want an early call, and between us we cover the whole week. Often one call is enough, but there's continued support if we need to. You'll have an initial 30-minute call and then we'll make plans from there. The way we work as a service is that we assume after each call that you've got things under control and back on track, and then we leave it with you to call us, but we're open for contact from you. Thank you. So that's the general bit about our service. So I've also been asked to talk more specifically about some bits of what we do. So next slide, Jane. So I thought I'd start off by talking about the Special Educational Needs Code of Practice, what it is, where you can find it, how to use it. I know Teams isn't very good at this, is it, at holding things up, but this is my paper copy of the SEN Code of Practice. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. Thanks, Jane. So to give it its full grand title, the Special Educational Needs and Disability Code of Practice 0 to 25 years, it's the statutory guidance for organisations which work with and support children and young people who have special educational needs or disabilities. It looks quite old now. I mean, they haven't updated the Code of Practice, but it's based in the law, the Children and Families Act 2014, and the Code of Practice came out in its updated form January 2015. So although that date looks quite old, that is the one that is used. The Code of Practice is guidance on a specific bit of the law, and that bit of the law is Part 3 of the Children and Families Act, and that's the bit that refers to children with special educational needs and disabilities. And what the Code of Practice does is it takes the law and it makes it clear in everyday language what everybody has to do, who should be doing what. And if you look at the Code of Practice, it uses words like must and should. Now, although the Code of Practice isn't the law itself, where you see the word must in the Code of Practice, it's a legal must. It's because the law says it has to do it. So if something says local authorities must blah, 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 then you know that you've got the backing of the law to say, actually, it's not just like me saying, oh, I must eat healthier this year. It's an actual legal must. Also in the code of practice, you see the word should, not quite as strong as a legal must, but if it says the local authority should do something, it's actually expected to do it and expected to explain why it hasn't. So it's still quite strong, certainly a lot stronger than should is used in everyday language. So at the end of the day, the Children and Families Act is the law, and that's what has the final say. But because it's not an easy read, then there's this statutory guidance, this legal guidance. And it's important to understand that the code of practice is what we base our advice on. Local policy might differ from that, and we will make sure you as a parent understand if that's the case. But we always refer back to the code of practice because that's what tells professionals and organisations what they must do. The next slide, Jane. So the code of practice, it's our Bible, it's our reference document, it's what we go to if somebody asks us a question and we're not sure about the answer, we go back to the code of practice. As I said, local policy and practice can sometimes differ. If you are one of the organisations that must be following the code of practice, you'd have to be very clear if you didn't do so. As well as the general overall guide, there are sort of mini guides to the code of practice written for schools, for early years, for parents, for social care professionals, health professionals and further educational professionals. So you can start off with the mini guide and then look in the actual code of practice. Next slide, Jane. So where to find it? You can go onto the gov.uk website and use their search function, or if you put it into any search engine and type in send code of practice, make sure you're getting one for the UK and it will take you to this. Yes, please, Jane. So this is the gov.uk website, and if you scroll down and keep scrolling down there, that top one on the left, oh, up, yep, next to that PDF. So can you see there, special education needs disability code of practice? If you click on that, it will take you to the document. It's 292 pages, it says, and there it is. There isn't an index. There's a contents, but there isn't an index if you're looking for something in particular, but you can use the little search. I'm pointing to it on the screen here, but you can use a little magnifying glass, the little search thing to put a word in. So you could like type in annual review and it'll take you there. But the contents makes it quite clear which chapters are which. Our favourite chapters, for want of a better word, are chapter 6, which are the duties on schools. So often a lot of parents' questions will be answered by looking in chapter 6, which tells you what's expected from schools, like how they should identify SEN, who's responsible for what. And our other one we use a lot is chapter 9, which is EHCs, and it talks you through the whole of the EHC process. There's a page that's got the different timescales on it. And the other one we often go to is chapter 11, which is resolving disagreements, because often parents are coming to us because they've got a disagreement. So that's the code of practice. It's not, bedtime reading, but it's not written in legal speak. It is written in a way that, designed to be read, rather than waded through. If we go back to the slide, I won't ask you to click through to that one as well, but when you get the slides, you should be able to click through to the guide for parents and carers. So that's sort of distilled down even more. So, what you could do is start by just looking through the guide for parents and then think, actually, yeah, I've got got a bit of more of an understanding of what the code of practice is, I think I'll go back and look at chapter 9 because I'm in the middle of the EHC process rather than going to the code of practice and starting at the beginning and trying to wade your way through. So I'd recommend to go to the guide for parents and carers first. So that's a summary of the SEN code of practice. If you hear people talking about it, it's very much something that as parents and carers, you can access, you can dip in and out of, you can just use a word to search for, SEN support or annual review or something like that, and then just read the relevant bit. Next slide, Jane. Thank you. So I'm going to move on now to talk about a bit more sort of, I suppose, on a more practical level, some of the things that you might be interested in for your own children, more specifically. I appreciate I don't know all of you, and I don't know which stage all of you are at. So hopefully everybody will find something useful in here. But we're going to start off by talking about support in a setting. So these are for children initially who don't have an EHC plan, an education, health and care plan, and there may be people on this call who are thinking, I don't even know what one of those is. That's fine. Leave that till later on in the session. We'll just start off with an understanding of just what should be happening in a school. I appreciate I'm talking about schools, and there may be people here with children in early years or in post-16 education. Broadly speaking, much of what I say applies. Some of the funding is a little bit different for early years, but in terms of generally speaking, what should be provided, you're okay to sort of listen to this bit of the talk, and then it will be easy to understand early years or post-16 on top of it once you've got a grip of this bit. Thanks, Jane. So as I say, I was just thinking, who could we have in the room? Obviously, if we were doing like a face-to-face training, we could find out more detail about you. But so there may be somebody listening here who thinks that their child might have special educational needs, but at the moment, nobody else is really agreeing with them. Perhaps school have told you your child has SEN, and that's come as a bit of a surprise to you. You might know your child has SEN, they might have an SEN profile, they might be getting support from school, they might be getting SEN support. School has said to you, your child is on SEN support, maybe something called top-up funding, or perhaps you're part way or all the way through the EHC process. So we'll just do a bit of an overview here and some signposting, and obviously you can always contact us directly. Thanks, Jane. So this slide looks a bit busy, doesn't it? All schools, the starting point is that all schools should be meeting the special educational needs of the majority of their pupils. And the first step is to understand, well, how should that be being done? I think my child's got SEN. You've told me all schools should be meeting the needs of most of them. So hopefully that will include my child. What should they actually be doing? So they should be doing this through what's called ordinarily available provision, i.e. that's interventions, support, strategies that are available ordinarily to everybody. So sometimes those are referred to as quality first teaching. And that, again, that's the standard of teaching expected to support most children. So schools should be following something called the graduated approach. And it's just like that, really. A gradual increase in the support put in, such that you're only ever putting in the support that's required. You don't look at a child and think, oh my goodness, I think they might have SEN, let's apply for an EHC plan. You shouldn't be starting here. Where you should be starting is here. What can we put in? I was trying to think of a different way of putting it. I know I've written here, put in the lowest level of support, and that sounds negative. And I don't mean it to sound negative. What it actually means is find something that works And if it works, you don't need to put more in. You can stick with what works. But it's about starting off by, let's put that in. That didn't work. Okay, let's put more in. Let's put more in. Let's put more in. So you're building up the support based on the need of the child. And that's all the graduated approach means. And so in schools should be using something called quality first teaching, the standard level of support that you can expect from a school. And they should be following something called an assess, plan, do, review cycle. So one of those, it's not, it sounds like it's something fancy, but it is common sense. So you assess the child, what are they struggling with? You devise a plan. So because they're struggling with reading, we're going to plan for them to have 10 minutes every day with Mrs. Brown working on their phonics. Okay, and we're going to do that for half a term. So then you do it, and then you review it at the end of that half term. Did it work? Was it enough? Have they caught up? So that's what an assess, plan, do, review cycle is. It's at the review, you've either achieved what you want to achieve and you can move on, or you go back to the cycle again, maybe tweaking it a bit, putting in some extra support or changing the type of support. But this is what everyone should expect for every child. And when schools are doing this well, when they're putting in quality first teaching, when they're doing the assess, plan, do, review cycle and the graduated approach, it means they can spot the children where that's not worked. Now, some of those children where that doesn't work might have special educational needs. Not all of them. Some of them might have other things affecting their learning, something going on at home, bullying, bereavement, or they might just have needed that little bit of catch up and they're functioning, they're now back to where they should be. But for some children, it highlights that they might have a special educational need. Now, the Cheshire West and Chester have got some information on quality first teaching on the Live Well website. Now, I have put a link to here because it's not, well, not necessarily the easiest thing to find. Are you able to follow that link, Jane?
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up now.
So on Live Well, you can type in quality first teaching, but on the Live Well website, there are two sections. There's the organizations, so the bit that will take you to a particular services, and then there's the information, and it's on the information bit. So I thought it was worth putting in the link directly. So if you scroll down here a little bit, Jane, just to that list there. So say, for example, you have a child with, we'll take the top one, ADHD, or a child who you think is showing some of the behaviours linked to ADHD. If you click on that attention deficit one. So this is not an exhaustive list, but it's a list of strategies that may help a child with ADHD or whose behaviour is looking like ADHD. And the reason we signpost to these quality first strategies is we say to a parent, these are great, have a look at it with your child, depending on how old they are. Maybe just put a tick against the ones that you know work at home. You know, I think it says there, do a stop, 10-second count before hands up. Stay calm and clear if pupil's behaviour is poor. So some of these you can transfer to home and you might think, well, that does work for us, or that would work in school. And you can take that to a meeting in school and say, oh, I had a look at these quality first teaching strategies. There's a few here that I think might work. Can we try them? So these are no cost strategies that a school shouldn't say, we don't have any funding for this. This is what you can expect from any school. Thanks, Jane. And so can be a really good starting point for a discussion with a SENCO. What I'll say is I referred to ordinarily available provision. We're aware that at the moment, the Cheshire West SEN team are working on developing a comprehensive sort of description of ordinarily available provision so that every SENCO should be able to refer to it. And as a parent, you can say, well, what can I expect from you? What's available without any additional funding? The The other thing at these initial stages, well, at any stage really, but particularly at these initial stages, if you're concerned that your child might have SEN, or if it's school are saying we think your child might have SEN, is to look at the school's own SEN information report. Now, every school, as part of this Children and Families Act, has to publish on their website something called their SEN information report. Now, if we were sort of doing face-to-face training, I'd ask somebody to sort of shout out the name of their school and we'd look it up together. I just picked one for no particular reason, Woodville Primary and Nursery School. Thanks, Jane. So the reason why we signpost parents to have a look at their school's SEN information report is that for some parents, you might not have looked at it, and that then can give you. Oh, that didn't work, did it?
Bear with me. It didn't. The link didn't work. Let me just go back.
That might be me. I'm just wondering if I can do it and share my screen, but I think that'll mess it. Oh, there we go. There we go. So if we just get rid of that box, yeah. So on the school website, you can see, can you see files to download, SEN information report? So if we can open that up. And so every school on the, you should be able to access it from the main page of their website. And if you can't, just give your school a call and say, can you send me a link to your SEN information report? And most of them follow a similar format. So if you just scroll a little bit, Jane, down, and so it's got some objectives, what's in the local offer, but then, so they've done theirs through a frequently asked question format, but all SEN information reports should answer those questions. So it's a really good starting place. And sometimes it just allows you to ask a question that you might not have thought about before, but it also allows you to go into a meeting and say, for example, I've looked on the SEN information report and it says that if you just go a little bit further, for example, on this one, you could say, it suggests that my child might have an individual education plan, or it suggests that my child might have a one-page profile. Can you tell me a bit more about this? Can my child have one? And can you see on this one, right down at the bottom now, it's talking about quality first teaching. So again, you can go in there and say, well, I think these quality first teaching strategies might work for my child. And you're going there with the confidence of knowing that this is a school that's already saying on their own report that they will use quality first teaching strategies to meet each child's abilities. So again, can be a really good starting point for you to meet with the school SENCO. Thanks, Jane. I'm making you work for your money, aren't I? Going backwards and forwards.
Yeah, it's the joys of Microsoft.
So next slide, thank you.
Oh, hang on a minute. It must be even. Oh.
That's it. Brilliant. Thank you. So that previous slide was focusing on the children who might need a bit of extra support, but for whom the standard strategies, quality first teaching, graduated approach should be enough. But for some children, that's not enough. And that's when the school might start to consider them to have a special educational need. And so you're then looking at a higher level of support coming from school. Now, this is still from school's own resources. Schools get funded to support children with an identified SEN, and it's called SEN support with a capital S, which I think is I can understand why it's called that, because it is support for SEN, but it almost doesn't feel official. So we stress to parents that it's SEN support, capital S, it's a thing in its own right. So thinking about what SEN support is, how will you know if your child has it, and what's a SEND profile? So if your child is receiving SEN support, i.e. support from the school's own SEN budget, you will know, or rather you should know, and good practice is that school will have a document called a SEND profile with details of the support that your child is receiving. So initially, this might just look like a set of targets for the term, and then for the next term, and then, but at some point you would expect to see them on a SEND profile document. A child might move on and off the school's SEN register, depending on what support is working for them at the time. So again, you can go back to the code of practice and look for what the definition of special educational needs are, but it's linked to a child's ability to access their education and what school have on offer without that additional support. It's important to note that having a particular diagnosis doesn't itself mean a child has special educational needs. So a child may have a diagnosis of dyslexia, for example, but the support that they have in a dyslexia-friendly school is sufficient for them to thrive with ordinarily available provision. Equally, there are children who have special educational needs, but who never receive a diagnosis. So the two don't necessarily come together. What's key is the difficulty the child has with learning or accessing facilities, regardless of a diagnosis. But for any individual school, it should be clear on that SEN information report how that school identify SEN and what they do to support it. So I know some of the questions that have come in have spoken about funding. So the schools are given an SEN budget based on a formula, and we have no need to know the formula. I have no need to know the formula. I don't know it, but it includes things like the number of children on free school meals, the socioeconomic status of the makeup of the children in the school. So it's a way of, broadly speaking, saying that school can have that amount of money to meet SEN. Now, on an individual basis, there isn't an amount of money for each child set aside, for each child on the SEN register set aside. What there is a lump sum of money that the SENCO and the senior leadership team of the school have to use to meet all of the SEN needs of the pupils. So they may choose to spend some of that on training for all of their teaching assistants or on some particular dyslexia software. But the key thing is that if SEN support is not enough for a child and the school are looking for additional funding from the local authority will say, can you show us you have spent £6,000 on that child in any 1 year? So there isn't £6,000 with your child's name on it. But if a school is saying, we can't support them anymore, the local authority will say, well, what have you done? And broadly speaking, they would look for a school to have spent £6,000 a year on that one child. Do you want to do the next slide, Jane? So that brings us on to, what if that SEN support is not enough? What if that £6,000 being spent on my child is not enough and their needs are not being met? They're still not making the progress that everyone is expecting them to do. Well, here in Cheshire West and Chester, there's a thing called top-up funding. I'm not aware of it in other local authorities. It seems to be a Cheshire West and Chester specific thing. It might exist, but not locally. So the school can request some additional funding from the local authority called top-up funding. They have to present their case on paper and they have to give evidence of what they've done and why they need more funding. And that's when the local authority SEN team would be saying, we've expected you to spend £6,000 on this one child. So you need to show us that you've done that, show us that you've done it properly, show us that you've done it well, and that it's not enough. So top-up funding tends to be where a school is very confident that they understand the issues, confident that they can put the support in place. They just don't have enough funding to do it. And the local authority SEN team panel will look at all of the evidence and they'll say, actually, we agree. We agree that you know what you're doing. We agree you just need a bit more money. And that they will then give 1 year's worth of funding. And they'll review it annually. You might be able to get it for 1 more year, but not beyond that, because the idea is that this is where everyone knows what needs doing and they just need a little bit more to do it to get the child to where they need to be. It's given for 1 year at a time, unless your child is in at a transition year. If they're moving up to high school, it might carry across to there. The thing about top-up funding is it's Cheshire West specific. It's not legally binding like an EHC plan, and it's at a set amount. So it's an additional £4,500 per year for that child to go on top of what school are already spending. Jane, I'm not going to ask you to click through on that one, but because it's quite specific for people who are interested in top-up funding to go through and look at that. We'll do the next slide. So in terms of you as parents saying, well, this all sounds okay, I'm following it so far, there's this thing called SEN support and then there's this thing called top-up funding, but what actually does that look like for my child? So Cheshire West and Chester have put together something called the Inclusion Framework, which is quite a meaty document. We do signpost parents to it, or will help parents understand it, but it's also something that you can take into school and say to the school Senko, can you help me see where my child is in this inclusion framework? So there's an inclusion framework for early years, one for schools and one for over 16s. And what it does is for each type of need and each level of need, it gives you examples of what could be in place for it. It can be a really useful document to map your child onto. So if we can just have a quick look at it, Jane.
I've also put it into the chat along with Quality First Teaching and Marie.
Thank you.
And then we've got a couple of questions to answer towards the end.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm aware they're there, so we'll definitely come back to those.
It's coming, it's coming. Where were we? Just let me know it comes up. I think it's just loading at the minute.
It's loading, yeah. Oh, I think, yeah, it's loading. Unless, I'm just wondering if I click on it through the chat and share my screen, but will that mess things up for?
I'll have to stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay, don't worry. Maybe we'll come back to that because it's not liking it, is it?
No.
If we go back to the slide, and we'll have another go at the end to see if we can bring the inclusion framework up. So we've done a bit of a whistle stop of SEN support in schools. I'm aware from some of the questions that there are children here with EHC plans. So if the quality first teaching hasn't been enough support for a child, if SEN support isn't enough support for a child, if you and school agree that top up is not the right way to go, it's very specific as to whether top up is the right way to go. And we would give individual support and advice on that. If a parent came to us saying school have advised top up, we would want to make sure you as a parent fully understood the difference between top up and an EHC. So we're going to have a quick look now at the EHC process, which I'll tell you now, we could do 4 weeks worth of training just on this. So we are just going to do a little bit of a whistle stop. What I thought might be a good idea is to put it up as a bit of a question and answer. But just to start off with, if SEN support is not enough, a school, your child can receive extra funding through top up, which we've talked about as short-term funding where a school knows what to do, knows it's likely to work within a year, just needs the funds, or an education, health and care plan. So this is where a school can demonstrate that that £6,000 a year has not been sufficient to support the child's special educational needs, and that more is required in a mainstream school, or possibly there's a feeling that this is a child who might require a special school. So it's an application process, and the application can come from a parent or from a local authority. And just as a summary, an application is made with as much evidence as you can. That goes to an SEN team panel. They decide whether you meet the criteria for an EHC needs assessment. If you do, the assessment period happens, more information is gathered, and then it goes back to panel, and the that information is, a decision is made as to whether this child requires an EHC plan. And essentially that's the process. Now, at the beginning stages, we often get asked who should ask for the EHC needs assessment, me or school. Now, either can, but we suggest, if at all possible, it's better to work with school to do it jointly. Doing it jointly usually means school actually make the submission. But some parents come to us and say, schools say they haven't got enough evidence, they don't think that it will meet the criteria, so they don't want to do it. Or they say it's quicker for a parent to do it. And sometimes parents say to a school, have said you're more likely to succeed. Our answer to that is that the paperwork and the process are exactly the same. So the requirement from the local authority in terms of the paperwork is the same. So those schools saying it's better if you do it, it isn't. It isn't at the end of the day. Why should school do it? Well, it can be, you know, if school put it in, that you've given them your paperwork and that everything's going in all together at the same time, and that you've started the process knowing school are supportive. However, there are reasons why a parent would just get on and do it. One would be if school disagree, if school are dragging their feet. It allows you to start the process. It gives you control over the timings, because once you've submitted it, it's a statutory process. And you can apply even if school don't support the request. So if you're the one asking what information do you need, you can request it through something called the EHC Hub. Our local authority have an online platform for everything to do with the EHC, but you're not required to. You can just write a letter or send an email, and we've got a guide to making a request, or we can help you with this. The thing to remember is that there's a legal test for whether your child can have an EHC needs assessment. It's that the child may have SEN, and that they may require additional support through an EHC plan. And the key thing to focus on is the word may. At the initial stage, you don't have to prove they do have SEN, and you don't have to prove they do require an EHC plan, just that they may. And then the assessment is what will decide if they do require it or not. Next one, please, Jane. So in terms of the timings of it, it's not a quick fix. The code of practice allows 20 weeks for the whole process to happen. The local authority can do it quicker, but the legal deadlines are a 20-week one. So the first deadline is 6 weeks, and that's when you'll get your decision about whether they're going to carry out an assessment. And then if there's an agreement to carry out an assessment, there's another 10 weeks to do that. And then there's another 4 weeks to produce a plan. So it's not a quick fix, which is why we say to parents, ideally you'll be working with school, because even if the process runs smoothly, you've still got 5 months of them being at school without an EHC plan. We get asked about deadlines. The code of practice actually sets out all the deadlines very clearly. If you get agreement to do an EHC assessment and an agreement to write a plan, you'll get sent a draft plan. So we get questions from parents about a draft plan. What do I do? You have an opportunity to go through the plan and to ask for changes. And this is also the point where you ask for the school that you want. We've got information to support you checking a draft plan, but what I generally say to parents is a good way to look at it is to think, if I handed this draft plan to a brand new teacher, would they understand my child and would they know what to do to help them? And that's quite a good starting point. In terms of asking for a school, the local authority will tell you their view of the type of school. And then that will be the type of school that they will consult with. They'll send the plan and ask for a place, but they also will consult with the type of school you want or the named school that you want. So at the draft stage, there won't be a school named because that's the last thing that happens in an EHC plan. Next slide. Thanks, Jane. So again, some other questions that come in, parents will say to us, my draft EHC plan hasn't been issued. What can I do? So on your hub account, there'll be a timeline. And if it's gone beyond the timeline, then absolutely contact your case coordinator or tell them that the deadline is passed, that you'd rather not complain, but you would like a definite date for a reply. The same if your final EHC plan hasn't been issued. If you disagree with the SEN team about the type of school or the funding they think your child needs before you've got your draft plan, so at the end of the assessment, the SEN team, if they say, yes, we agree your child needs an EHC plan, at that point they will say, for example, and we think their needs are best met in a mainstream school with X amount of funding. At that point, you can't appeal. It's just a recommendation. And at that point, you can say to them, I disagree with you, and I'm going to ask you to consult with a different type of school. Once you've got a final EHC plan, that's when you can lodge an appeal, and that's something we can support with. At the moment, we're suggesting to parents that they do ask for a mediation meeting before they lodge an appeal. And the main reason for that, well, there are two reasons. One is that a lot of issues can be resolved at mediation. But secondly, appeal dates are being set for 12 months away. So if you lodged an appeal today, you might not get a hearing date in front of a judge for 11, 12 months. And so mediation can be a way of resolving your issues before that. Next slide. So I thought it would be useful to have on this set of slides what to do if things are not going to plan. There's a phone number for the SEN team. You know, we have feedback from parents about how variable that is to get a response, but that is their phone number. What we also have are the contact details for the SEN team's communications officer. Now, we have had some positive feedback from parents as to how relatively quickly Stuart responds to them and appears to be able to get things moving. And then the other thing is the Together Trust. Now, they are our local authorities' mediations and disagreement resolution organisation. They're separate, standalone. They're a paid service by the local authority, so they're not Cheshire West team. They have an official role to play for mediations where parents are requesting mediation and the local authority has to attend, but they can also support in more general disagreement resolution. The other organisation is the national organisation IPSI, which is sort of like us, but nationally, and you can book a call with them. There's also the Civil Legal Advice Helpline to check if you're eligible for legal aid if you're pursuing a tribunal. And there's also the wider charity contact. Thanks, Jane. I was also asked to touch on some ideas for meeting professionals and what can help when you've got school meetings. So we'll have a quick look at that, and then we've still got time for the questions as well. So if you've got a meeting either with school or with a local authority professional, there's three things that are really important. One is recognizing how you feel about that. Two is doing the preparation for it. And three is thinking about getting support for it. Thanks, Jane. So you might have a meeting in a school with lots of professionals, lots of paperwork, talking about progress, or often in some cases where there's not been any progress. You may have different relationships with the teachers and professionals who are there. You may have professionals who you really wanted to be there or thought were going to come, who then send apologies and don't come. And it can be worthwhile thinking about what emotions that situation might evoke in you or your young person. Next slide. Thanks, Jane. So when we've done this, I think you might need to click a few times. That's it. Just keep clicking. When we've done this as some face-to-face training, we've given people a chance to come up with some of these, and these are the emotions and feelings that often come up. So anxiety or nervousness, embarrassment, anger, confusion, upset, frustrated. Must admit, we don't often hear people say excited or joyful, but there may be parents who feel like that, not who tend to come to our training. So next slide, Jane. So the reason for putting those up, is just to think about those and accept the fact that that's how you're feeling, and that it's actually perfectly understandable to feel those feelings before you go into a meeting. But preparation can really help with some of those feelings. So check, this sounds very basic, but actually check what you know the meeting is for, and is there an agenda? And if there isn't, it's fine for you to create one. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. You can just put in an email to the SENCO. Thanks very much. Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Here are some of the things that I want to cover in the meeting, and just write them down so that you at least know they know what you want to talk about. It might be a more formal meeting where the SENCO themselves has prepared an agenda, but it's absolutely fine for you to create one. Was there another meeting? Is this part of, are you meeting regularly? And if so, were there any notes from the last meeting? Even if they were just notes you jotted down, get them out and think, have a look through them and think, oh, actually, the SENCO was going to do that referral to the autism team. Put a little star by that, make sure you discuss it at this meeting. So rather than it be a standalone separate, so that you feel like there's been some progress, or if they haven't done it, they now recognise that you're a parent who is going to hold them accountable for something they said they would do. Check who will be there. Are there names? Have you been told, oh, Mr. So-and-so is coming, and you think, well, I don't know who Mr. So-and-so is. You know, is he a pastoral lead, a head of year? Who's going to be coming to the meeting? Check that you know who the people who are coming, what their roles are. But also, is there everybody who you expect to be there going to be there? So sometimes we're asked to support families where there's a TAF and it's to do with attendance and the child has SEN, but often the person there from school is their safeguarding lead. And so lots of questions that the parent might have to do with SEN can't be answered in the meeting because the wrong person is there. So it's an opportunity for you to say, I would like the SENCO to be at this meeting as well. Do you know where and when the meeting is and how long it's for? So understanding how long it's for can give you an opportunity, can allow you to think, well, realistically, what am I going to be able to cover? So has the SENCO set aside an hour or half an hour, or is it just a 10-minute catch up? What realistically are you going to be able to cover? And if they say, well, I can see you from 9 till 9:15 and you've got a list of 10 things you want to talk about, might be better to go back to them and say, when next week have you got an hour for me? Oh, yes, sorry, TAF, team around the family. Your role in the meeting? Did you ask for it or were you invited to it? Does everybody know what the meeting is for? So if you asked for the meeting, have you made it clear exactly what you want to discuss? What you don't want is to pull something out the bag in the meeting and find you've not got the right people there, or you just get a response, I'll have to check with the class teacher. What you want is all the information to be at that meeting for you. Was there any paperwork to read? This is more likely to be if you're in the EHC process and you've maybe having a review of the EHC, and there will be paperwork for you to read beforehand. And do you need a bit more time to do that? Do you need somebody to go through that with you? Can you take somebody with you? I mean, the answer to that should never be no, but it's you thinking, okay, can I take somebody with me? Will I feel better if I've got a friend with me, a family member, if you meet our criteria, or if it's online, somebody from our team? It's important that that person understands what their role is. And then have you got your notes? Write down what you want to ask. So something that we suggest to parents is on a piece of paper, write down what your question and then leave a space, and then write your next question with a space in between, which is your prompt to write down the answer. Don't rely on remembering it. At school meetings, there's often a lot to take in. The other thing we've found is that you writing down the answers, it concentrates everybody's minds on really thinking about what they're saying to you and committing to do things because you're writing it down. Next slide. Thanks, Jane. So thinking about support, who have you got who you can take with you? Somebody it's support in a meeting, but also support outside of a meeting to understand the issues, to plan, and to think about your next steps. In terms of SENDIASS, what we can do is we can listen to your story, we can help you organise your thoughts, we can help you plan the meeting, lists of questions, points you want to make, understanding why you're asking those questions. In some cases, we can attend meetings with you, but if not us, somebody who can take note of action items, help keep you on track, help keep things moving forward. And then whether we've attended or not, we can talk to you after a meeting and help you understand, this person said this, what does that actually mean, and help you plan your next steps. So the next slide, I have just put a couple of organisations that you might not be aware of that you can look at for sources of advice and information leaflets about all things to do with SEN. And then the next slide is just a bit of a summary. I was just trying to think of some top takeaways to fit on one slide. So that would be the school's information report. Always just go to the school Senko and say, I've got concerns. Can we have a half-hour catch-up? Can we meet? Have a look and see if any of our leaflets help. Definitely have a look at the IPSI website, and then have a look at the SEN section of the Live Well website. And what I would suggest, if you look in the SEN section, you see lots of coloured circles with different titles in that you can click off. There is one called the Senko Zone, and I would always say to parents, that's not password protected. You don't have to prove you're a Senko. So always have a look in that as well, because sometimes some of the forms and the paperwork are in there and you might think, oh, I'll just have a look and see what the form is for that before I go into a meeting. So in terms of the slides, I think that takes us to the last one, is just our contact details. So that leaves us time to go back up. Let me just scroll back up. So now's a good time for anybody to put any questions in the chat, or what I'll do is try and address the questions in the chat in that order, and then if there's time we can do some others. Is that okay, Lucy?